In the heart of Alabama, a scandal of unimaginable proportions shook the very foundations of the state's judicial system. It was July 10, 2019, and the news broke like a storm cloud over the quiet streets of Montgomery. James Fuller, a prominent lobbyist and businessman, had been accused of bribing a state legislator with a staggering $100,000 to influence policy decisions. The figure itself was breathtaking, $100,000. A small fortune that could change lives, sway elections, or even grease the wheels of justice. But what made this case particularly egregious was the player involved, State Representative Jack Williams. A respected figure in Alabama politics, Williams had a reputation for being one of the most influential lawmakers in the state. Details were still sketchy, but sources close to the investigation hinted at a deeper web of corruption that spanned years. It seemed Fuller had been funneling money to Williams through various shell companies and offshore accounts, using complex financial transactions to conceal the true nature of the payments. The motives behind this alleged bribery were equally intriguing. Was it to secure favorable legislation for one of Fuller's high-profile clients or to gain leverage over key policy decisions? The news sent shockwaves through Alabama's capital city, with many in the tight-knit community struggling to reconcile their faith in the system with the reality of such brazen corruption. How could this have happened? Questions swirled about who else might be involved and what the full extent of the scandal was. The fallout was immediate. Williams stepped down as chairman of the House Rules Committee, and Fuller's lobbying firm faced a wave of public scrutiny. As authorities dug deeper into the case, they uncovered more disturbing evidence, including handwritten notes detailing meetings between Fuller and Williams and cryptic emails hinting at future transactions. The investigation was ongoing, but one thing was clear: this scandal would leave no stone unturned in its quest for truth and accountability. The state of Alabama was reeling as the news of a $100,000 bribery scandal shook its judicial system to its core. On July 10, 2019, the investigation into James Fuller's alleged wrongdoing made headlines across the country. As a prominent lobbyist and businessman, Fuller's reputation had been built on his influence and connections in Montgomery. But beneath the surface, it seemed that power and corruption were intertwined. At the center of the scandal was State Representative John Rogers, who stood accused of accepting $100,000 from Fuller to influence policy decisions. The staggering sum raised more questions than answers. What policies had Rogers allegedly agreed to support, and at what cost? As investigators began to dig deeper, they uncovered a complex web of relationships between politicians, lobbyists, and special interest groups. The fallout was swift and severe. State Representative Rogers resigned from office, citing health reasons, just days after the allegations surfaced. But many in Alabama remained skeptical, questioning whether Rogers' departure was truly voluntary or orchestrated by those with more power to spare. As the state's Attorney General's office launched a probe into Fuller's activities, lawmakers scrambled to distance themselves from the scandal. The House Ethics Committee convened an emergency meeting to review the allegations and determine next steps. Meanwhile, whispers of impropriety continued to swirl through the corridors of power in Montgomery. Questions still lingered. How had this corruption gone undetected for so long? What other secrets lay hidden behind closed doors in Alabama's halls of power? And what would be the ultimate cost of this betrayal of public trust? The investigation was just beginning, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again in the state capital. The investigation into James Fuller's alleged bribery scheme led to the arrest and indictment of State Representative Phil Williams on October 17, 2019. According to court documents, Williams allegedly accepted $100,000 in bribes from Fuller between June and August 2019. The money was reportedly used to influence policy decisions related to a lucrative casino bingo complex in Macon County. Further scrutiny revealed that the transaction involved two shell companies registered to Fuller's associates, Green Trail Equities and Southern Strategic Partners. These entities facilitated the transfer of funds into Williams' personal bank account at Regions Bank in Enterprise, Alabama. The indictment alleged that Williams used these illicit funds for personal expenses, including a $35,000 payment towards his mortgage. As investigators delved deeper, they discovered a web of transactions involving Fuller's companies and several other state legislators. These dealings raised concerns about the extent to which bribery had infiltrated the state's judicial system. Fuller's influence on Capitol Hill was well documented, with numerous lawmakers testifying before committees he lobbied for. The scandal drew national attention due to its scope and brazen nature. Critics accused Alabama's government of institutional corruption, citing a culture of cronyism that allowed such practices to flourish unchecked. The fallout led to calls for greater transparency and accountability within the state legislature, as well as an FBI investigation into Fuller's business dealings. The indictment against Phil Williams sparked heated debate over his potential ties to Fuller's lobbying empire. Insiders revealed that Fuller often hosted lavish fundraisers at high-end resorts, where he would rub shoulders with influential politicians. These gatherings frequently coincided with critical legislative votes on issues directly benefiting his clients. The bribery scandal that unfolded in Alabama's state capitol is a stark reminder of the corrupting influence of power and money. At the center of the storm was James Fuller, a well-connected lobbyist with ties to some of the most powerful players in Montgomery. His alleged attempt to bribe State Representative Jack Williams with $100,000 sparked outrage across the state, leaving many wondering how such blatant corruption could occur under their noses. As investigators began to dig into the scandal, it became clear that Fuller's influence peddling was just the tip of a much larger iceberg. It was revealed that Fuller had been funneling cash to Williams over several years, using a complex web of shell companies and offshore accounts to conceal the transactions. The total amount allegedly bribed, $100,000. But what's most disturbing about this case is not just the brazenness of the crime, but its impact on the very fabric of Alabama's government. As one observer noted, this is a betrayal of the public trust, plain and simple. And indeed it is. By attempting to buy influence, Fuller was essentially buying access, and that undermines the integrity of the democratic process. Experts warn that cases like this can have far-reaching consequences for ordinary citizens. When politicians are seen as susceptible to bribery, it erodes faith in government, making people feel powerless to effect change. And if unchecked, such corruption can spread like a virus, infecting even more institutions and undermining the rule of law itself. In Alabama, where the economy is heavily reliant on state contracts, the implications are particularly dire. As we delve deeper into this scandal, it becomes clear that James Fuller's actions were not an isolated incident, but part of a broader pattern of corruption. And yet, despite numerous leads and allegations, those responsible remain at large, their fate hanging precariously in the balance. As the news of James Fuller's alleged bribery scandal spread like wildfire, it became clear that the incident was no ordinary case. The sum of $100,000 was staggering, and the fact that a state legislator had allegedly accepted it to influence policy decisions raised serious questions about the integrity of Alabama's judicial system. The accused lobbyist, James Fuller, was no stranger to the world of politics. With a reputation for being one of the most influential figures in Montgomery, he had built a lucrative career by lobbying on behalf of various clients. However, his alleged involvement in the bribery scandal left many wondering how such a powerful figure could engage in such brazen corruption. The state legislator at the center of the scandal was identified as Senator Larry Dixon, a respected member of the Alabama State Senate. According to sources close to the investigation, Dixon had allegedly accepted the $100,000 bribe from Fuller with the intention of using it to influence the passage of several key bills. As investigators began to dig deeper into the allegations, they uncovered a complex web of deceit and corruption that went far beyond a simple bribery case. The investigation revealed that Fuller had used his connections to funnel millions of dollars in campaign contributions to various politicians and state officials over the years. The revelation sparked outrage across Alabama, with many calling for Dixon's resignation and others demanding a full-scale investigation into the entire judicial system. As the scandal continued to unfold, it became clear that this was no ordinary case of corruption, it was a symptom of a deeper problem plaguing